Today I wanted to do a little analysis of a scene from Pride and Prejudice. So the scene I want to look at is the part where Lady Catherine comes to visit Elizabeth in the middle of the night. I want to sort of observe it from a more video editor, media production type perspective and see what we can learn from this. In the book, Lady Catherine does visit Elizabeth and confront her about how she thinks that she's engaged to Darcy, but it doesn't happen in the middle of the night. This scene in 2005 Pride and Prejudice actually reminds me a lot of Willoughby's nighttime visit in Sense and Sensibility, which was not in the Sense and Sensibility movie in 1995. I was actually really surprised when I saw the movie and that scene was not in it, but I guess the 2005 Pride and Prejudice made up for it for us. So in the movie, Jane and Bingley just got engaged this afternoon. So this is at night. Jane and Elizabeth are talking about it, and all of a sudden they hear a noise outside.
What's that?
I like the horses winning. That's whinnying. I like the horses winning. Who is the first? Is that Mary? Or is that a servant? There's Kitty. There's Elizabeth. Okay. Yeah, Mary's the first one out. I wonder why she was the first one out. And then Mr. Bennet is the one that actually answers the door. It seems like they would have had a servant answer the door, but this movie did make them kind of more poor and more modern, I guess. Where is this light coming from up here? That looks like a hall light. Maybe they have like a lamp or something up there. I don't know, it's kind of weird. Okay, there's a servant finally. The servant finally showed up.
Lady Catherine.
Elizabeth is the only one here who knows who she is. I mean, she says Lady Catherine, but I guess everyone else just curtsies they just curtsy to everyone, I guess. Okay, so the light is on this side of her face, right over here, which makes sense for the window. And then she turns and the light switches to right here. I guess there's more windows like on this side of them because I mean they're kind of lit up too. I kind of thought they were lit up from this window, but there must be a window on this side that's lighting her up too because it's the same sort of outdoor light that we're looking for. It's not a candle or anything. We stayed in the same shot for like, okay, they're walking in, walking. Okay, then we stop here and this is where we stay from 17 to 29. So like 12 seconds we stay in the same shot. We're just observing, no cuts. But as soon as she turns, basically, Elizabeth like sort of turns and looks to her. Interesting, they're sort of both on this side of the frame. We have some empty room over here. I think it's a nice shot. Then we flip back to Lady Catherine, and she is, I think, basically on a line of thirds. I'm trying to figure out what this is. Is that hair or lighting or what? Anyway, she's basically on the line of thirds. She has light from the window lighting up one half of her face. The other side of her face is super dark, which makes sense.
The rest of your offspring, I presume.
All but one. The youngest has been lately married.
That's where
your
it is, like,
ladyship.
looks. Mrs. Bennet is so confused. This guy, the servant who didn't do anything but show up late, he's confused.
And my eldest was proposed to only this afternoon.
Jane's happy again. Mrs. Bennet's just bragging all over the place, but now Jane's at least happy because she got reminded of what she's happy about. She's so not impressed.
You have a very small garden, madam.
Could I offer you a cup of tea, perhaps, Your Lady?
Absolutely not.
She doesn't drink tea. She's a coffee person.
I need to speak to Miss Elizabeth Bennet alone.
And we got back to the same shot that we had before. Kind of a cowboy shot, honestly.
The medium full shot is arranged from the top of the subject's head to just below their waist. It is sometimes referred to as a cowboy shot based on the height of gun holsters.
So we get a close-up of her right here. Again, a very nice shot, well lit, really nice. I like the darkness behind her, just a lot of contrast. Her hat is a little confusing because it looks so dark too.
I need to speak to Miss Elizabeth Bennet alone, as a matter of urgency. You can be at no loss, Miss Bennet, to understand why I am here.
Indeed, you are mistaken. I cannot account for this honor at all.
Miss Bennet, I warn you.
Yeah. Someone shows up your house in the middle of the night and you're supposed to, like, know why they're there. There's like no reason why she should expect someone she barely knows to show up at her house in the middle of the night. In the book, it makes more sense. Like, at least Lady Catherine shows up in the daytime. Like, the whole showing up in the middle of the night thing, no one knows what she's up to. Nice shot. I like how, so we have cool light again from the window, which I guess be on the opposite side, which is on the opposite side of the room. We know from other scenes in the movie with this candlelight that's lighting up Elizabeth nicely. Really nice how only the characters in this, it's not the center, but what we're looking at in this scene is lit up really nicely, and then everything else around it's dark. So we have our focus where it's supposed to be, on the action. Okay, so if we just go back to here, we have the last thing we see is Elizabeth looking over, And then she's basically in the same spot in the next scene. The director of photography or the editor, or maybe both, set it up that way. Why does she like have her back to her first? So they walked in the room, Lady Catherine had her back towards her. So she like walked ahead, Elizabeth stopped, and then like she's just turning around dramatically. That's funny. It'd be so cool if she had a cape, like a big swooshy cape. Make it way more dramatic. And then if they had like a mid shot or some sort of close up, like from Elizabeth's perspective, for like swooping around with the cape, very relevant, but it would be fun.
You can be at no loss, Miss Bennet.
Her skirt is so noisy.
Indeed, you are mistaken. I cannot account for this honour at all.
Miss Bennet, I warn you, I am not to be trifled with. A report of a most alarming nature has reached me that you intend to be united with my nephew, Mr. Darcy.
So this is an over-the-shoulder shot. I love the shaky camera throughout this scene, which is one of the reasons I wanted to sort of do a breakdown analysis of it. If you want to like make someone look more important on a screen, you have the camera like looking up at them, looking like they're in charge or in power. But if you want someone to seem more insignificant or weak, you have the camera like angled down at them. Lady Catherine looks down on everyone, so not a huge surprise that we have her looking down on Elizabeth. Now, if we look at the previous scene, she's actually taller than Lady Catherine. The distance, obviously, of the two standing farther apart makes it easier for Elizabeth to look smaller than she is. Very nicely lit over here. Now we have another over-the-shoulder cam, and this has actually a slightly more accurate view. Over Elizabeth's shoulder, Lady Catherine does look smaller because she is shorter. Elizabeth looks small from Lady Catherine's perspective, but Lady Catherine, I feel like, looks even smaller from Elizabeth's perspective. I don't know if that's just from the height difference or if that was intentional, that Elizabeth thinks even less of Lady Catherine than she seems to think of her.
I know this to be a scandalous falsehood. Though not wishing to injure him by supposing it possible, I instantly set off to make my sentiments known.
If you believed it to be impossible, I wonder you took the trouble of coming so far.
That's a really good point. And then we cut immediately to her response.
You took the trouble of coming so far.
To hear it contradicted, Miss Bennet.
Your coming will be rather a confirmation, surely, if indeed such a report exists.
Now she's getting upset, she's moving closer, which makes her larger, more intimidating.
Your coming will be rather a confirmation, surely, if indeed such a report.
That's interesting. She like looks down, like she's thinking about like, oh, that's not what I wanted.
Surely,
and then
if indeed
she's just
such a
back to
report
being angry. She's like, if?
Do you then pretend to be ignorant of it? Has it not been industriously circulated by yourself?
I have never heard of it.
And can you declare there is no foundation for it?
Do not pretend to possess equal frankness with your ladyship. You may ask a question which I may choose not to answer.
This is not to be borne.
She has the right to remain silent, I guess.
Has my nephew made you an offer of marriage?
Your ladyship has declared it to be impossible.
Then we get really close up to get a good expression.
Let me be understood. Mr. Darcy is engaged to
I
my
like how
daughter.
she kind of lifts her head.
Now
like,
what are you to say?
Only this, if that is the case, you can have no reason to suppose he would make an offer to me.
You selfish girl.
and she's taking up like half the screen, more than half the
Are the
screen.
shades of
Why do we have our
Pemberley
heads so
thus
huge?
polluted?
Yes.
Now
Yes,
tell
they
me
are.
once and for all.
They're going to
Are
be
you
polluted.
engaged to him?
I am not.
Wait, she looks like she's almost gonna cry there. Was she looking like she was gonna cry in the previous scene? I don't think she's gonna cry here, like maybe. Even there doesn't look like she's quite gonna cry. Right here is when she looks like she's about to cry.
Now tell me once and for all. Are you engaged to him?
I am not.
And will you promise never to enter into such an engagement?
I will not, and I certainly never shall.
That's a confusing line. It almost sounds like she's promising that she won't ever get engaged to him. But like it also sounds like she's not promising that. I don't love the wording there. That's not very nice that they have it like looking up her nose. That's like the angle I try not to go for on YouTube. Is it going up her nose the whole time? Seems a little mean, but I guess she is the bad guy. There is much better, like, see?
And will you promise never to enter into such an engagement?
I will not, and I certainly never shall. You have insulted me in every possible way and can now have nothing further to say.
Could you be any more insulting?
Yeah?
Must ask you to leave immediately.
Who gasped? I think it was Mrs. Bennet who did the gasp. You can't really blame them for listening at the door. Like, this is so weird. It's not their fault this random woman shows up at their house in the middle of the night and wants to talk to Elizabeth. Like, they're curious. Okay, now we're back to the shaky camera, which I almost forgot about for a second.
Every possible way and can now have nothing further to say.
Okay, so this was not as shaky. Like, a little bit, but they were trying
Must
to keep
ask
it
you to
still.
leave immediately. Good night.
Super shaky, super shaky. dynamic because it's being
I've
turned.
never been thus treated in my entire life.
And the dog's barking just to add to the chaos.
Lizzie, what on earth is going on?
Misunderstanding.
Lizzie?
For once in
It's
your
a
life,
misunderstanding. It's kind of rude. Like I said, it's their house that is being barged into in the middle of the night by a random person. Like, I feel like they were owed a little bit more of an explanation. There's like no music in the whole entirety of this scene. Kind of love that. That's great. I don't think it would have been as good if they had music. I don't know why they had her visit in the middle of the night besides trying to make it way more dramatic. I mean, I guess maybe, like in the scene Elizabeth said, her visit would be taken as a confirmation of their engagement. Maybe in this version, Lady Catherine visits at night because she thinks less people will see her. So that actually kind of makes sense for the story, despite it being different than the book. Another thing about it being at night is it's very dramatic. It's all dark. The lighting is specifically on the actors. There are a lot of interesting elements in this scene. We have the shaky camera, which is a big deal, and then the zooming in as the conversation gets more intense. We have the lack of background music to just give us nothing to focus on, nothing to distract us from the dialogue. Another thing in the scene is the lighting. The lighting is very much focused on the characters, so we're focusing exactly on what we need to focus on. Again, there's no distractions. Everything about it was stripped back, and I think it really worked for the scene, and I think it's definitely worth learning from. If you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe or comment below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.